Hi everybody, this is Rain,
And Andy.
and today we are going to talk about a specific adaptation from Stephen King that came out last year, Doctor Sleep. We're going to talk about the movie, and then I'm going to tell you guys and Andy how I felt about the book and all the little differences they made.
Yeah, because she's read the book. I don't read much. So I saw the movie with her, but as far as how it compares to the book, that's all on her.
Yeah, but I don't think you really need to read the book in order to either appreciate or hate the movie. Because both of
absolutely
us.
not.
Yeah, because both of us are avid fans of Stephen King, Kubrick, The Shining.
Yeah.
Not Stephen King.
You gotta be specific that it's Stanley Kubrick's The Shining.
Not the miniseries.
Because,
The Shining.
Stephen King's The Shining, the TV miniseries,
It's exactly like the book, but in all the worst ways possible.
In other words, it's boring as all hell.
Yeah. Which is pretty sad because the novel itself was actually amazing. You've heard me talk for hours about it.
Oh, yeah.
But anyway.
But onto the topic at hand. Dr. Sleep. So this, as she said, is a sequel to The Shining. It takes place several years after, where Danny Torrance is all grown up.
Well, a little bit of the beginning for both the novel and the movie.
They do show a little bit going back to him as a kid talking to Dick Halloran.
Mm-hmm.
But for the most part,
because of his issue with the ghosts.
Yeah, the bulk of the story is grown-up Danny, off on his own, struggling with alcoholism like Daddy Dearest.
I'm just saying we could have snuck a bottle of whiskey into the movie theater and had ourselves a little Stephen King drinking game. Every time AA was mentioned in the book or in the film, you could have easily gotten drunk off of just a shot each time they talked about it. That's all I'm saying.
But, real quick synopsis, Danny settles down in a small town, starts going to AA meetings to control his alcoholism, and eventually meets a little girl who's being hunted by psychic vampires.
He meets her telepathically and then physically later on. Like, from the book and the movie, even though the movie didn't show it quite as well, in my opinion, all throughout her life, she does have a connection to Danny Torrance.
Okay.
Because, in the book anyway, it sounds like it was when she was a toddler or 3 or 4 years old, somewhere around there, that she actually first contacts Danny. And that's when he's already living in that apartment with the chalkboard on the wall and all that other stuff. Both are correct.
That's one thing I wanted to touch on. I really like how he communicates with her.
Mm-hmm. All the telepathy beforehand.
Because it's not, at least in the movie. You'll have to tell me if it's the same way in the book or not. Mm-hmm. It's not a direct telepathic conversation. He's writing on his apartment wall, which is like a blackboard. Mm-hmm. And she's writing back to him either in her head or in a notebook or something. I don't know.
Basically, it's as shown in the movie where there is a blackboard. Basically, in the novel, they talk about how the kid who originally rented out the apartment, he asked the landlady if he could paint the entirety of the one side of the wall. Because he was in college and he was majoring in mathematics of some sort. So he would just scrawl all these algorithms on the wall. And that's...
have all his equations and stuff up there so we can work through things.
Yeah. From what I remember, that is the same as in the book.
Okay.
So they do telepathically connect when she first says hello with a smiley face. That is actually accurate from the book.
Okay.
She's the first one to contact him, and it's with the little smiley in the circle. Because, I mean, she's like 4 or 5 years. She's like 4 years old, I think, when she first connects to Danny.
Mm.
And he doesn't know who she is at
Right.
all. At all. And all he knows is that he feels that this is not some malevolent spirit of any form, so he writes back, "Hi." And the more they progress, the little that they contact through the years, by the way.
Mm.
In the novel, they do specifically state that it's years while she's growing up, from when she's 4 or 5 years old, all the way up to when she's a teenager. Kind of mid-teens, I'd say, is when she's aged in the book.
Yeah, in the movie, they make it out more
kind
as
of months instead of years, it feels like.
I mean, there's definitely years past, because the first time she contacts him, she is a very small girl.
Okay.
And then, later on, she's, 13, 14?
Something like that, yeah. Because I think in the novel, she's like 4. Yeah, she's like 13, 14.
Yeah, young teens.
Yeah.
But the way they show it in the movie, it's as though she hasn't contacted Danny at all over the years.
Right.
Until she suddenly has this psychic encounter with this group of...
The True Knot.
Yeah, the True Knot, who...
The psychic vampires.
I describe as psychic vampires because they siphon off the shine.
Or what they call the steam.
Yeah. Yeah, the shine from basically anybody who has psychic abilities.
Specifically young kids, because in Stephen King's universe,
it's always the kids.
It's usually younger kids who have the shine, and it's strongest when they are younger. The older that they get, the less the shine is pronounced.
Right.
Like Danny Torrance, he was, in Halloran's opinion, a lighthouse.
Yeah.
When he was, 5 years old in the novel and in the movie? Yeah.
Yeah, I think he was 5.
But
5 or 6.
Yeah.
Somewhere
and
around there.
Even as he's like 40-something in the novel. And he does look 40-something in the movie.
Yeah, late 30s, early 40s.
Yeah, he has less of the shine, but it's still there. It's absolutely still there.
And it's still very strong.
Yeah.
Just not nearly as strong as it was when he was a child.
Right. Can I just say that I appreciate that they give you those little nods and hints in the novel and in the movie that he got his job and he got his life situated in order in that new town because of his shining ability.
Oh, yeah.
It's kind of funny because when you think about it, I don't remember entirely if they specifically say that the shining is what is making him becoming an alcoholic. But that is what happens in the novel. He is an alcoholic because the shine dulls or completely shuts off when he drinks alcohol.
I think they do kind of touch on that. They might not have been so explicit about it, but they do at least hint that that's why he's drinking.
Okay, I couldn't quite remember since we only watched this once and in theaters months ago.
That is a very interesting thing because he doesn't.
It ruins his life and it also sets it in order.
Yeah, he doesn't exactly get his job because of his shine, but he makes
No, it is because of his shine. In the novel and in the movie, he gets the job because he talks to the doctor.
Oh, right, yeah, because he
helps him find his wristwatch.
His watch, yeah. I was trying to think of what it was that he helped him find.
Yeah, it was a wristwatch on top of the soap dispenser or the paper towel dispenser in his hospital because he was worried about a kid he was working on.
And then it was because of that the doctor helped him get into the hospice ward.
Right, because the doctor even asked him, "How did you know?" And Dan, no longer Danny.
Yeah, just Dan. Just Dan.
Dan Torrance.
Or Uncle Dan.
We'll
we can get into that later.
But Danny basically tells him, "I have ways of knowing, I just can't tell you why. You won't believe me."
Right.
Basically, that's how it goes. Because just about most of the main characters in that novel, there is a hint of a shine to them, especially his good friend. Oh god, what was his name? The one who helped him get into AA.
I
I'll have to pull out the book if I need to.
Yeah, I don't remember. It's been a while since we watched
it's
this.
actually been months since we watched this, and I only read the book twice. Once when it came out, and once before the movie came out. I probably already said that,
But anyway, what I was originally getting at, I mean, more interesting than just using his shine to get his job is how he used it during his job.
Oh yeah, which
'Cause-
earned him the name Dr. Sleep.
Because,
I
as,
like
as I
that.
said, Dan is working in a hospice ward with a lot of old, dying people, and there's a cat there who seems to know when people are gonna die because
Yeah,
it'll
the
go up.
orange tomcat.
It'll go up and curl up on their beds, and anytime he does that, that person is usually found dead the next day.
Yeah, or that night.
Yeah.
Basically,
So-
the cat's a friendly creature, and
Right.
it keeps company to all the people in the hospice. But he specifically lays with these hospice patients and refuses to get off the bed. And that's when the nurses and the wards know it is their time. And mind you, during all this time, Dan hasn't earned his name yet
Yeah.
when this first starts happening.
Right. But
And he's actually basically a custodian for the
Yeah.
hospice.
yeah, he's
not an actual
he's like
doctor.
an orderly.
Yeah, he's an orderly. He is not a doctor in any way, shape, or form.
No.
He never becomes a doctor.
But because
he
of this
actually
cat,
gets his own office
Yeah,
because
because
of his gift.
because of this cat being able to lead him to the people who are about to die, he uses his shine to sort of comfort these people in their last moments.
Yeah.
Kind of look into their
It's-
head and
Mhm.
remind them of the good things in life.
Right. I could be wrong, but it's also hinted that he helps. He's basically their ferryman.
Kind of helping them cross over.
Yeah, he helps them cross over.
Okay.
A lot of it is just simply implications. You absolutely know that he's there to comfort them
Right,
and
right.
make them feel better and make them feel ready to go crossover. But there's that. I don't know if King meant to do this, but every time one of those scenes came up, I got that implication that he was actually their ferryman,
Okay.
in a sense.
That would be an interesting implication if
Yeah.
it was intentional. And even if it's not intentional, that's an interesting
It's an
way
interesting
to read into
idea. It's an interesting
Yeah.
idea.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
every time I read into this scene, I felt like he was the border. That third party crossover between the land of the living and land of the dead because of his shot.
it. Right.
I could easily be wrong, guys, but that's just a little theory of mine. But anyway, so
yeah, that's
continue
that's
on with
pretty
the
much-
synopsis, really. Because, I mean, we've only touched up on a little bit here and there of what
Okay,
actually is going on in
so-
the novel and in the movie.
Yeah, so Danny's living in this small town, what, maybe 10 years?
10 to... Yeah, about 10 years. 10 to 12 years, something like that. Living in this little town. And
over the years working in the hospice ward, he does earn the nickname Dr. Sleep because of how he helps the patients.
Yeah. And while that's going on, Abra, the other main character of the novel...
The little girl.
Right, the little girl. She has a major shine.
Ooh,
Like when
yeah.
Dick Halloran called Danny a lighthouse, basically what Rose the Hat, the leader of the True Knot, called her, she described her as other children are just a blip on the screen, but she is a searchlight through styrofoam. Not searchlight through styrofoam, but basically, at one point in time, her and her second in command, Crow Daddy, are talking.
That name is so silly.
I know King. It's King. He makes
I mean,
weird names.
it fits at least in the movie because he's got this kind of beatnik vibe to him.
Yeah.
You could very easily.
And he's got vaguely ethnic look to him.
Yeah.
So you could almost think that maybe
You
he
could-
came from some Native American
But I mean, you could
Well, yeah.
easily see him, like, hanging out in a cheap cafe, listening to bad poetry. Hey, Crow Daddy.
Okay.
I'm just
That's a very interesting idea of why you would call him Crow Daddy, but
I'm just saying the name fits his look in the film.
yeah, it really does.
That's just my little tangent on that. I'm sorry.
Okay, anyway. But basically, when they're talking about this little girl, Abra, at one point in time, they're worried about, well, what if she gets older? What if we drug her? What if we cannot find her? And Rosa Hat basically laughs and she's like, no, you guys don't understand. You have not felt her power like I did during these few glimpses of her. Making this girl grow up in age is like putting saran wrap over a searchlight. That's what it was. Saran wrap over a searchlight.
Yeah, because
she's overpowered. This girl is 100% OP'd to a horrific stance.
God mode!
Yeah, pretty much. I loved King when he did a lot of his older stuff. I even loved it when he created It, when he was just in this cracked out haze. I am gonna confess, I hated the book. I absolutely hated the book. To me, it shouldn't have been made.
Yeah.
It's an unnecessary sequel, and because of a lot of the problems I had over Rosa Hat, of how Rosa Hat was called overpowered. Everyone said how beautiful she was. How bombshell she was. She was this beautiful,
Rose is overpowered, huh?
Gorgeous, overpowered force of nature. She was described as a goddamn force of nature in the books who should be feared.
I'm sorry, that's just hilarious to me, knowing how things turned out in the movie.
Okay, so what I just said about Rose, amplify that by 100, and that's Abra. Little 12-year-old Abra.
Yeah, because Rose...
She literally is...
Rose gets overpowered and outsmarted by Abra at
every
literally every turn.
Like, in the book and in the movie, every single time. There is no match. There is no match of their power. 110%. Rose gets thwarted every time.
Easily,
that's boring.
Too. Easily.
And here's the thing. What kills me is the True Knot are supposed to be scary.
Yeah.
Mind you, we laugh at the idea of a psychic vampire or a psy-vamp. To me, come on, that's hilarious. Just say it out loud real quick. Psy-vamp.
In theory, these guys are threatening and scary.
And here's the thing, they kill children.
Yeah, because
torture.
that's the thing. They're scary and threatening because they specifically prey on children.
Yeah.
And torture them to get as much steam out of them as they can.
Yeah, they specifically torture these children to the point of death so that they can suck in that steam. Because to the True Knot, fear is what brings it out most. I can see where that comes from.
But then on the other hand,
look at The Shining.
Right.
Fear brought out Danny Shine a lot.
But then on the other hand, every time there's a confrontation with them involving the main characters, immediately. It's laughable.
Yeah. Because
it's just laughable how easily this little girl and this ex-alcoholic can just knock these guys around.
And his friend.
Yeah, and his friend.
Okay, so we're going to go into some spoiler territory. I'm sure we already have, but major spoiler territory, even though the movie's already been watched by plenty of people.
Yeah, anybody who wants to see the movie already has.
Yeah, probably. And it's coming out on DVD here shortly anyway, I assume?
Yeah.
But, okay, so basically, the difference between the novel and the movie is a lot more people die. A lot more people on the good side die. And you know what?
People on the good side in general die, from what you told me before.
Yeah. I actually liked that.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, there were so many things that they changed from the novel that I actually enjoyed. There were consequences to their actions.
You need stakes and consequences to have an engaging conflict.
Right. There were none in the novel.
I mean,
everybody lives on the good side in the novel. I
laugh at how easily these Trunach get slapped around, but at least in the film, they're able to do some damage.
Right. Like, I mean, they killed Dan's best friend. Mm-hmm. And I feel bad because I can't remember his name. And I actually kind of liked him in the film, and I liked him in the book.
In the film, he was kind of forgettable.
I guess I was reading between the lines because he does have more impact in the novel.
Okay.
As a friend, he has more impact in the novel. Like, all of his major scenes are still there, but they cut a lot of his character at the same time. Does that make sense?
Okay.
But I enjoyed him.
Yeah.
I enjoyed Dan's friend, even though I don't remember his name.
I mean, he's a serviceable character, and it does kind of hurt when he dies.
Yeah. He was actually much older. Much, much older in the book, too. Like, in the novel, he's actually just a old white guy. So, another thing that I liked about the movie is more diversity.
Yeah, because I believe you said that the Trunach specifically were almost entirely crusty old white guys.
Old white people. Not just old white guys. There was a good mingling of old white women and men, but they were very much... Okay, so Stephen King tried so hard to make these people terrifying because they tortured children to death, literal death.
Yeah.
And you know what? That is actually a terrifying concept until you constantly read about how they're just old, crusty, fat, white people in RVs. Like, they are the all-American RV troops. You would never suspect anything going on from them.
Yeah, I mean, you look at their...
It kills me.
I mean, even in the movie, you look at their camp, and they look like a tailgating camp.
The thing is, it's
like
kind of interesting.
They're following their favorite team or their favorite band.
It's actually kind of interesting because when I watched the movie with you, they kind of reminded me of modern day Romani. Like, not actual Romani.
Right.
Because of their lineage and their dialect and all this other stuff. Right. They definitely look American. And some of them even have a little bit of ethnicity to them.
Oh, yeah.
So they give that sprinkling of, they came from other cultures, from other times. Which I found very interesting compared to the novel, because of the fact that in the novel, it's very explicit. These are old white people, specifically white. There's a lot of
they are still mostly white in the movie, but there's
still sprinklings
there's
of
still
diversity.
A little bit of diversity there,
which I had to appreciate, to be honest.
I feel bad because I can't remember offhand, like, pinpointing.
Because Snakebite Annie was specifically white American.
Yeah.
Crow Daddy, it's hinted that he may be Native American.
Okay.
The old man who died, the very first old man who died was Roman. I mean, he still definitely looked white, but I think that's because modern Americans don't know what Romans actually looked like.
Yeah.
Though we are all pretty sure they weren't pasty as fuck.
And then Rose herself was...
Irish. She was Irish. In the novel... Okay, so what I just said a minute ago, there was some racism going on in King's early works, and in his work from 6 years ago. This was 6 years ago that he made this novel, by the way. Probably now almost
King
7
never really shied
point.
Away from showing racism.
Yeah, like, I personally don't think he means to be racist himself.
No.
But he definitely showed a lot of racism in his novels, specifically to call out racism.
Yeah.
But in this novel, there was no calling out of racism. I just felt racism in this novel. Because...
Okay.
I'm not gonna say the name, but Barry... Okay, let's just say little girl Abra thought they were calling him Barry the Chunk.
Oh, right.
And they called him something else because he had slightly slanted eyes.
Uh-huh.
King specifically wrote in his novel that Barry and his wife were both called a specific slur, even though they were American. And he actually said that they were American and white, but they had slightly slanted eyes. So everyone in the True Knot called it
Chinese.
Yes. Which I didn't appreciate, because that was not even 7 years ago that he wrote that novel.
Yeah.
And I know from what I've read of King that he actually doesn't seem to be legitimately racist. But man, did I feel some racism in this book when it came to the True Knot.
Ooh.
I'm glad they didn't put that in the movie.
Yeah. Yeah, that's better left out.
Uh-huh.
So anyway, moving on with the story.
Sorry guys, we're very disorganized with this, but you know what? That's fun.
So, young Abra has her second encounter, I believe, with the True Knot, specifically with Rose.
Did we even talk about the first encounter with Rose?
I mean, the first time Rose just kind of sees her, or is... I am blanking on the order of events here.
The first time Abra is actually aware of the True Knot is when they're killing the baseball boy.
Okay, so yeah, it's not the second encounter that I'm thinking. Okay,
you're thinking of the first encounter?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. As far as I'm remembering, there are no first encounters between Abra specifically and the True Knot.
Okay.
There are hints and remnants of when Danny was traveling when he was a drunk, that he may have passed by the True Knot at one point, but neither recognized each other.
Okay.
They didn't catch his steam, nor did they notice him, or he noticed them.
Right.
Which, can I just talk about the very ending of the movie real quick because of what I just said? In the book, there's implications that they never caught Danny because they never felt Danny, even though they passed by each other. Remember in the movie where Rose is like, "How did we pass by you? You have such steam."
Okay.
And she offers to turn him.
Yeah.
Because he's so powerful. Because she feels how powerful he is. How did they not catch that in the novel then? Because she doesn't offer that in the novel. She just straight up wants him dead.
Yeah. Well, at that point, it is weird that she would offer to turn him since he killed half of her crew.
Well, think of it this way. They are a dying breed.
Yeah.
She is one of the few. Like, in the novel, a bunch of her people actually leave.
Oh.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah, because in the novel, a good chunk of her people from the caravan actually leave while she's preparing to get Abra.
Okay.
Because of the measles outbreak.
Oh, right.
Because of Baseball Boy.
Yeah. So,
yeah, guys, we are going all
going
over the place with the plot on this.
Going back to Baseball Boy, the first encounter between Abra and the True Knot is when they kidnap a Little League player and torture him for his steam.
Yeah.
Abra
it's
feels...
an explicit scene in both the novel and the movie.
Oh yeah, it's rough to watch.
I'm not a fan of kids, and I felt bad for that kid.
But Abra feels everything that this kid is going through. And
I think that's implied in just the movie alone, because in the novel she sees everything.
Yeah.
But I don't remember her feeling.
In the film, it is kind of implied that she feels.
Yeah.
Maybe she's just seeing it
and letting her imagination go wild,
right,
because she's so young.
But it is kind of implied that she feels what he's going through, or at least feels his mental anguish.
I think that's where it came from. I think she was feeling his mental anguish.
And she has a breakdown to where Rose picks up on her.
Yeah, she basically, from what I remember in the novel and from the movie, she actually, in a way, shows her essence as she's watching the scene unfold in front of her, of all these people torturing this little boy to death. Like, it's kind of like a spectral version of her is standing there.
Right.
For a moment. And they actually did that very well in the movie, because it reminded me so much of how it felt like in the novel, of how Rose caught her. Because in the novel, it more or less said that she felt Abra, but it was like, you know, like shadows across the corner of your eye kind of a deal?
Okay, yeah.
It was one of those type of scenarios where she thinks that she sees someone, and she sees the specter of a little girl, but it's not very clear.
Okay.
And this is only when Abra's like 4 or 5, laying in her bed as a small child sleeping. Because I remember in the novel, she wakes her parents up screaming bloody murder that they're killing the baseball boy. And that's when she reaches out to Danny. Help, they're killing the baseball boy.
Okay.
And Danny has no idea what to think of any of this. And he just kind of, like, passes it over his mind. Because it's years later when he makes the connection after he and Abra start talking.
Right. So,
anyway.
Yeah, they kill this kid. Abra sees the whole thing psychically.
Mm-hmm.
So she starts reaching out to Danny for help. And eventually she tracks him down to where he's
down
living.
The road. Years down the road, by the way.
Yeah.
She doesn't track him down to where he's living.
Well, to his town.
After they email each other.
She just shows up out of the blue.
Oh, right. In the novel, that's not how it went.
Okay.
Yeah, in the novel, they actually eventually get to the point where they trade emails through this blackboard. Like, after a couple of years, several years actually, of them just kind of occasionally, month after month, saying, hi, good morning, school, stuff like that. Just, you know, picking up on each other. Mind you, in the novel and in the movie, Abra doesn't know she's talking to a 40-year-old man.
Yeah.
She thinks she's talking specifically to Tony. To Tony.
Oh, yeah, Tony.
Who...
Good old Tony.
Yeah, and the thing is I'm not remembering very well of how they describe Tony in this movie, in Dr. Sleep, but in the novel of Shining, Tony is actually a spectral version of Dan.
Right.
In between, like, only a couple of years older than when he was 5. Like, in The Shining, they specifically say in the novel that it is a boy who might be in his mid-teens?
I'm you from the future.
Pretty much. Yeah, and Danny doesn't connect it in his head at the time in the book of The Shining that it's actually him.
Well, yeah.
Because he's at that point, he's a 5-year-old looking at a form of him that's like 12 to maybe 14.
Yeah. He's not going to recognize himself.
Right. So, actually, now that I think of it, it kind of makes sense that Abra connects to this spectral version, Tony, because this version of Dan is around her age. And she connects to Tony around the same age that Danny first connects to Tony.
So, does Tony...
What goes around comes back around, kind of a thing.
Does Tony not age with Danny?
No.
He's just still this little boy?
I guess, because Dan never sees Tony ever again after the events of The Shining.
Okay.
He never connects to Tony. He actually tries connecting to Tony a couple of times in the novel of Dr. Sleep.
And he just can't?
No, he can't. He actually gets Halloran, which I think is a bit better, in my opinion. There's more heart to it at that point when you see Halloran. Because Halloran was Danny's / Dan's teacher.
Yeah.
His mentor. And became kind of like a second father figure.
Yeah.
Because unlike...
Most especially in the book where he's still alive.
Yeah. As I was about to say, unlike the movie of The Shining, Dan does escape with his mother alive, which, that happened in the movie.
Yeah.
And then Halloran is alive, mutilated. Like, his jaw is busted.
Oof.
Like, busted. Half of his face is busted, and his jaw is, like, completely wrenched to one side, it seems, and half of his teeth might be missing because his father hits him with the roque mallet.
Yeah, those mallets are pretty sturdy too.
Mm-hmm.
But at least it wasn't an axe.
Yeah. I mean, in both the novels of The Shining and Dr. Sleep, Dick Halloran is alive. Halloran is alive until probably when Danny's maybe in his 20s or something.
Mm-hmm.
You never explicitly find out when Halloran dies, but you do find out that he dies of some disease. I think maybe cancer.
Mm-hmm.
And this was when Danny was on a drinking binge when he was younger. Because in the novel, they don't really go real deep diving into his alcoholism.
Right.
And his bad years in the novel, or I mean in the movie, but they don't have time for that.
Right.
In a Stephen King movie, they don't have time for that, and I appreciate it. Because in the novel, they specifically talk about how Danny starts drinking when he's 16.
Okay.
And he hides it from his mom. Like, he doesn't drink terribly, but he realizes at around 16 years old that when he drinks a little bit, he can quell down The Shining.
Okay.
Because The Shining is just hurting him so bad. All these voices in his head because of people thinking or talking around him that he can't block out. And then you gotta think of the mental chess that he has to keep hold. Because in the novel and in the movie...
Really touched on yet is...
the specters of the old Overlook Hotel follow Danny.
Yeah, all of the...
in both variations.
All of the spirits that were torturing him and Jack in The Shining follow him after the hotel is either burned down or abandoned, depending on which version.
Burned down.
So... Danny learns a trick from Halloran, or from his ghost, to...
In the novel, he's still alive, but okay.
That's why I'm saying either or, because...
Yeah. Anyway.
It's an adaptation. You gotta take the differences.
Yeah. In the adaptation, Dick Halloran is ghost. In the novel, he's still alive talking to Danny.
So, from either Halloran himself or from his ghost, Danny learns this trick to create a box in his mind and lock the spirits inside it.
Yeah, I think he specifically makes, in the movie, it's like a chest for each specter.
Yeah.
In the novel, it's this small, ornate, wooden carved box.
And it's just the one for all of them?
No, it's multiple for each. Yeah, it's one for each.
I really do.
The only difference is that it's a small, ornate, beautiful wooden carved box versus like a chest, a standard chest.
I mean, the chest is pretty nice looking. It's not just a plain box.
Oh.
It is.
When I saw that chest in the movie, I immediately thought, well, that's a pirate's chest.
But I do like that visual, though.
Yeah.
Because in the film, in Danny's mind, he stores all of these chests with the spirits in the old hedge maze.
Yeah, I actually really liked that. Because when you think about what the hedge maze meant in Kubrick's film, it's supposed to be that mental image.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be the image of your psyche, essentially. Yeah. Getting lost in your own psyche, essentially.
It is very interesting that the hedge maze would be what Danny sees, because that's the setting of basically the most terrifying time of his life.
Right, yeah, absolutely.
Where his father is chasing him down with an axe.
Yeah. And for the fact that the maze is supposed to be a physical... oh my god, my mind is completely blanking on words. But basically, in the movie The Shining, that maze is supposed to be the physical manifestation of the human psyche.
Okay.
At least from what I remember reading about The Shining and what Kubrick was meaning to do with all of his little changes of The Shining.
Okay.
Instead of hedge animals running after you, you have a physical manifestation of the human psyche.
Okay. But anyway, we got off on a huge tangent again.
We're going to keep on doing this because...
we can't keep doing this every 2 seconds, honey.
Yeah, you're right.
So anyway, Abra eventually tracks Danny down to the town where he's living in. In the film, she shows up out of nowhere, having taken a bus while her parents were out.
Yeah. Pretty much like, what, in front of some library?
In front of the park.
Okay.
Because Danny's helping out in the park where they have a bunch of...
oh, right, the...
fun stuff set up.
Yeah, for the train.
Yeah.
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 She basically
like a small train that
encircles
this town park. It's pretty cute. But he's helping out there, and Abra shows up, and he's like, wait, what are you doing?
Who are you?
Who are you? Oh, it's you. We can't be seen together. This is going to look really, really weird.
Yeah, people are going to think Uncle Dan here is a pedophile.
Oh, you can just say I'm your niece.
Yeah, I'll just call you Uncle Dan.
Yeah, and she does. She starts calling him Uncle Dan, which eventually leads to a hilarious misunderstanding later.
Misunderstanding?
Her father.
Oh, yeah.
So anyway, she tries to enlist Dan's help, telling him that if he can find something that belonged to this baseball boy, she can...
specifically his glove.
Right.
Because I'm pretty sure in both the novel and movie, she specifically says, I know he has a glove. If you can get that glove from his body...
yeah.
I can do this. I can find out shit about them.
Yeah. Basically says, if you can find something that belongs to him, find his glove for me, I can track these people down, and you can help me get them.
Yeah.
And at first, Dan wants nothing to do with this. He thinks it's all crazy.
In the movie, anyway. In the novel, he is very wary of all this, especially with the stakes that he has to dig up a boy's body.
Yeah. And in the movie, it's not until after Rose tracks Abra down that he agrees to help.
Yeah, because it was kind of weird, but I didn't mind it that they changed it to where instead of in the novel, Danny immediately accepting everything and saying, okay, I don't like any of this, but obviously something has to be done. These creatures need to be stopped, and I need to help you.
Now, Rose finding Abra was an interesting scene to me.
Oh, yeah. I actually really liked that scene. I had no idea how they were going to go about it from the novel.
Again, I'm not sure if this is set up the same way in the book, but the way they set it up in the film is that pretty much everybody in the True Knot has a specialty for their powers.
It's kind of implied that all of them came from The Shining first. Like, it was basically implied, like, just like Snake by Annie, all of them or most of them actually were at one point in time humans.
Right.
Who had incredible shine.
Right.
And then were turned, much like how vampires are turned.
But they all have a specialty. The only other one I can remember right now is Snakebite Andy, who they call a pusher. Mm-hmm. And she can
pushes people.
Yeah, she can influence people to do what she wants.
Yeah, she was pretty damn good at it when she was just a
teenager.
She was like a early 20s, maybe mid 20s girl in the novel, and she actually came from the Casablanca era in the novel. Okay. One thing I don't like about the movie is their sense of time is so warped where it doesn't feel...
In the movie, she's a new recruit.
Right. I mean, she is.
Well,
but not that new.
Brand new recruit in the movie.
Yeah.
But anyway, getting off on a tangent again, they all have their specialty that they do with the powers. Andy's the pusher, and from
Rose
the looks of
is
it,
also
Rose
a bit of a pusher.
But her specialty is
astral
seeking
projection,
people out. Yeah,
really.
Yeah, astral projection and using that to seek people out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, all can have a sense of where people with the shining are, but Rose and Barry specifically
are really good at tracking people down.
They are trackers.
And it is shown fantastically in the film how
the astral projection scene. I loved
how
that
Rose
scene.
leaves
that
her
was
body
so good
and tracks down Abra.
Yeah, because in the novel, King almost describes it as the world tilting for Rose.
Yeah.
And they show it so well in the movie.
Yeah.
One thing I kind of wish they had shown, though, was turning the wheel. The turning the wheel scene. Where a lot of the astral projection and a lot of the switching that we will later on talk about, that they talk about in the novel and in the movie, there are little scenes where they describe it as turning the wheel. Each person in their astral form turn this almost like stone tablet. And that's what helps them shift from one body to the next. I thought that was a very interesting image.
Okay.
Because in my mind, it was a very celestial image.
Yeah.
And a very macroverse image, really.
Right.
Which I'm perfectly alright with it not being in this movie because of that astral projection scene.
Yeah.
The tilting of the world for Rose. That was
really good.
That was good.
So, Rose does her thing. And
finds Abra.
She finds Abra because Abra's leading her to her.
Essentially, yes.
I mean, Abra's basically reaching out to Rose at this point, trying to find these people.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very easy for Rose to track her down and fly into
her bedroom.
Her bedroom, into her psyche, where Abra has already laid a trap for her.
Yeah, because in the novel, they describe her psyche very much like how Stephen King described people's psyche in Dreamcatcher, where it's basically a giant mental library full of records, of written records of human memory. And that is very much what happens in the novel for Abra.
Yeah.
Her psyche is a mental library where they do their first confrontation.
Yeah.
I kind of like the movie's adaptation more because it shows a more modernized version of a child's psyche. It's still her bedroom, but onto the one side is this almost elongated room version of her own bedroom with filing cabinets.
Right.
And I just found that interesting because it's a little bit of a more modernized twist that is still it still captures the spirit of what King was trying to do with the book.
Yeah. So Rose falls into this trap.
Mm-hmm.
She
gets thwarted very easily.
She's stuck to everything, and Abra easily just throws
pushes her out. Like, she damages Rose.
Like, yeah, like, Rose gets physically hurt going back into her body from it.
Yeah, because I think in the movie, her hand, a lot of her skin gets scraped off of the back of her hand from the filing cabinet.
Yeah.
And she also gets a nosebleed from being thrown back so hard against her own body. I know for a fact the nosebleed of being thrown back into her body so fast and so hard was also in the novel. I can't remember if she was physically damaged during the actual confrontation, but I don't think she was.
Yeah.
It was her being thrown back into her own body where she was damaged.
I do like the idea that the damage she takes in her astral form does transfer when she goes back.
I actually quite like that a lot.
I thought that was really cool.
That shows more stakes on what will happen when they do it again.
Yeah. There's
Who's
actually
gonna get hurt?
There's actually some risk to doing this.
Right. Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, I wasn't the biggest fan of the movie, but despite what a lot of people say about the movie, especially if they have already read the book, a lot of people, from the sounds of it, didn't like the movie as compared to the book. I'm of the minority that I loved the movie far more than the book because of all the changes that they did. I kind of liked the ending, but that was because of the nostalgia.
We'll get to that in a few minutes.
But it was all those little details that they changed throughout the rest of the film that made it so much better than the actual novel itself, in my mind, because of all the risks that they took and all of the consequences that they had to face. Because, as I said, in the novel, good guys, they all live. Every single one of them live. In the movie, half of them die.
Alright. So, after this encounter, Abra reaches out to Dan again, who finally agrees to help her.
After, in the movie, almost drinking again.
He enlists the help of his AA buddy. And
the doctor. The doctor who got him the job, who is also connected to Abra.
He helps in the book?
Yeah.
Okay.
He helps in the book and in the novel, doesn't he?
In the movie, I don't remember him helping. I mean, he doesn't go with him, at least. If he helps in any other way, I don't remember
He does help convince the father to calm down and to let Abra go on her mission, I think, in the movie.
No. I think that's still the friend.
What? The friend has no stake in helping with the father because the friend doesn't even know the father. The friend has never met the father.
The doctor wouldn't know the father either.
The doctor knows the father because the doctor is also Abra's pediatrician.
They live, like... I'm pretty sure the doctor has nothing to do with Abra in the movie.
In the novel.
They live...
Okay.
Separated.
I'm confusing the book and the movie, guys. I'm connecting dots that were there in the novel that aren't there in the movie.
The doctor isn't there at all when they go on their road trip and when they go to Abra's house.
Yeah, the doctor is there in the novel because he was Abra's pediatrician.
Okay. That's where I was getting confused by.
Yeah, because Abra's town and Dan's town aren't that far off. Because in the novel, the pediatrician is only vaguely known by Dan at that point in the novel. Like, he helps him with his watch, and they're part of the same AA meetings, but he practices in a different town, in Abra's town.
Okay,
anyway, sorry guys, I got completely confused.
The doctor doesn't have much of a part in the movie at all.
I forgot.
From my memory, at least. I could be misremembering things. But anyway, he enlists the help of his AA friend, and they go on a road trip to find Baseball Boy's glove.
A literal cross-country road trip to dig up a boy's body.
So they managed to get it without any real incident.
Which is kind of surprising, because there's this build-up in both the movie and the novel of, oh no, we are gonna get caught.
Yeah, like, I think they even have Abra astral projecting to be kind of a lookout for him, don't they?
Not in the novel. I can't remember if that was a thing in the movie.
I know she's at least there talking to Dan through the...
She was there, but he didn't want her to be there.
Right.
She wasn't a lookout of any form for them.
Right.
She was just there to make sure that things were okay.
Yeah. You're right. But...
I was about to say.
So, they get the glove, and then they go to meet up with Abra at her house. Who was supposed to show her dad everything that's been going on.
Before they came.
But instead, she just tells him.
Yeah, she kind of...
About Uncle Dan.
Yeah. She kind of has a breakdown before
you can imagine how he would react.
Yeah.
And it is hilarious.
Well, honestly... It's hilarious unless if you put yourself in the shoes of the father.
It's hilarious in the context of the film. But yes, if you put yourself in that dad's shoes, you understand exactly why he acts the way he does.
Yeah. Yeah, because the father's like, who the heck is this guy? What has he done to my daughter? How does he know my daughter? Who is this pedophile? Is basically his whole thing.
As soon as they
I don't blame him.
As soon as they pull up, he's like, "Oh, you must be Uncle Dan. Come here." But doesn't he come at him with a baseball bat or something, or does he just punch him?
I think he just punches him, but yeah, he is aggressive and he is ready to fucking kill this man.
Understandably so.
Yes, no, I fully agree.
But again, in the context of the film, I find it amusing.
Yeah, and that's why Dan originally tells Abra, you need to show your father everything before I come. That way he understands that I'm not here as some creepy, nasty pedophile. Yeah. I am here as someone who actually does want to help you. Not just because I'm an old man and you're a little girl.
But instead, she just told him everything that was going on,
and of course he doesn't believe.
Of course he doesn't believe it, so he jumps to the not wild, but the wrong conclusions.
Right. And definitely not a wild conclusion, but yes.
No, not by any means. But, so, he's trying to beat the shit out of Dan, and Abra finally projects to him everything that she's been experiencing.
Yeah,
everything she's seen, and everything that's about to go down.
Yeah, because in the movie, you don't really get a sense of how long she's been hiding her powers from her parents. But you have a sense that she has been hiding her powers from her parents for a long time.
Like, there was that episode in the beginning that they naturally...
With the spoons.
Yeah, they saw, where she's got bunch of frickin' spoons stuck to the ceiling.
Yeah, because in the novel, she was born. She, as a baby, as a 1-day-old baby, had incredible powers already. In the novel, when she's a little tiny baby, she actually has music playing from above the piano. Not from the piano itself, but she has piano music playing in the air above the piano because it soothed her to sleep as a baby in her crib. And that was their first indication that Abra was a very strange, powerful, and special little girl. And then the spoon thing happened. In the novel, she actually freaked out when 9/11 happened.
Okay.
Yeah, because in the novel, she's still basically between baby and toddler phase.
Right.
When 9/11 happens, and she's screaming bloody murder. She's acting like she's having a fever. She's acting sick. She's worrying her mother, her father.
Right.
She will not stop crying. They take her to the doctor, and the doctors don't know what's wrong with her.
Okay, yeah.
Everything is physically fine with her, but she's freaking the heck out. And then she projects images to her mother and father separately. Different symbols and inclinations of what is going to happen with 9/11.
Okay.
think her father gets an image of the two towers, or a number 11, and then her mother gets something else. And that's another big thing that happens to them. And then slowly over time, after the spoon incident, when she's, it's on her 5th or 6th birthday, is when she projects spoons onto the kitchen ceiling, when the magician is, like, bending spoons and doing all these other things in the backyard. And she says, "Oh, I can do that too. Let me show you." That particular scene was actually very heavy in the book because of the fact that the pediatrician was there.
Oh. Okay.
And that's when originally the father and Nana, the grandmother or great-grandmother, I think it was the grandmother of her mom. Yeah, it's Abra's great-grandmother and the father are talking to the pediatrician throughout the years, telling the pediatrician about Abra's powers.
All the strange things she's doing.
And it's the spoon scene that actually shows him that they're not just saying these things, that things are actually legitimately happening.
So would this be a good time to bring up Abra's other connection to Uncle Dan in the book?
I think we should talk about that a little bit later once we get to the ending sequence of everything.
Okay. All right.
Because that's how it happens in the book. You don't get all of that until the very, very end.
So, Abra convinces her dad of what's really going on.
Yeah. And her mom is gone because in the background, her great-grandmother is dying of cancer.
Right.
Which is a major thing in the book, but is nothing in the movie.
Yeah.
Which I'm kind of sad about.
Yeah, so the mother is gone visiting the grandmother or great-grandmother, I don't remember which.
Her grandmother. Okay. Abra's great-grandmother.
Okay. So the mother's gone through all that, and...
Yeah, mom's out of the way, so they have to talk to the father and convince him
her dad
that this
finally
is all
agrees
legit.
To let Dan and his buddy help out.
Yeah.
And let Abra track down the True Knot.
Yeah, he very reluctantly agrees with Abra tracking down the True Knot. He doesn't like Abra being part of any of this.
No.
But he is understanding that her powers will help Dan and his friend track down the True Knot so that they can get rid of him.
Right.
But he really just doesn't want Abra to be part of any of this. But he also understands the gravity of the situation, that no matter what, she's already a part of this.
So, Abra does her thing, tracks him down, which leads to another bit in the movie that I really like, is while they're driving to the location, you see Abra in the car with them the whole time.
Right, yeah. Holding her stuffed teddy bear.
Right. So then they get to this campground where they're gonna meet the True Knot and have their little confrontation. Which
is actually the grounds for the train in Danstown in the novel.
Okay. So anyway, Dan and his friend are off hiding in the trees with rifles.
They lay a trap for the True Knot while Abra
is just sitting on a picnic table on the campground.
Out in the open, waiting for the True Knot to come.
So their camper pulls up and they all get out.
Everyone except Crow Daddy, because the original band of the True Knot who came to pick up Abra was Crow Daddy, Snakebite Andy, Barry, and then a couple other people, but one of them in the novel actually dies on the road to them because he picked up the measles as well.
Right, yeah.
Can't remember.
They all got the measles from Baseball Boy.
Yeah, I can't remember the name of the other person, but
in the film, it's pretty much everybody except for Crow Daddy and Rose.
Right.
Rose they convinced to stay behind because of her wounds. And
because they believe firmly that Abra will see them coming. They want this as an ambush attack.
Yeah. And Crow Daddy is off doing his own thing, which we'll touch on in a second.
Yeah, they don't talk about him being gone at all in the movie.
Well,
in the novel,
he does tell Rose before they leave that he has his own plan.
Oh, okay. Because in the novel, he doesn't have his own plan until halfway to Abra, when Barry and Snakebite Andy feel her looking into their minds.
Okay.
And that's when he starts thinking, let's try something different. Because Barry, before he actually dies, he whispers something to Crow Daddy. And it's the implication of their little trap that they've got going on.
So, the True Dot show up to this campground. Abra's just sitting out in the open.
With her teddy bear, by the way. But,
naturally, it's just an actual astral projection. She's not really there.
Which the True Dot don't know until the very last second when Snakebite Andy is trying to convince Abra to come to them. Yeah. They're friends. And it doesn't work, and Snakebite Andy starts worrying.
Zero effect. And Andy starts worrying because she's a really strong pusher.
Yeah.
But that's when Dan and his buddies start opening fire.
Yep, they start shooting them up. Which is very interesting, because in the novel, it is just one-sided. Nobody in the True Knot has rifles or guns of their own.
Well, it's pretty one-sided in the film. It's pretty one-sided in the film too. Like, I think somebody might have a handgun or something, but
no, in the film, a couple of the other True Knot people have guns as well, and there is a little bit of a shootout.
Okay, yeah,
and they kill the best friend.
Yeah,
in that.
I was getting to that, but yeah.
Oh, sorry.
So yeah, they have their little shootout. It was said earlier that Dan's friend was a hunter.
Yeah.
So like he knows how to set traps for animals and the best spots.
And more importantly, he knows where to get the guns.
Yeah. So they completely massacre the True Knot. Everybody except for Snakebite Andy goes down in one or two shots, and she is mortally wounded.
Yeah.
About to die like the rest of them.
And unfortunately, the best friend gets stupid. And in my opinion, a little bit cocky.
Yeah, he gets a little too close.
Too close to her to where she can touch him.
Yeah.
And she pushes him. And she makes him shoot himself.
Yeah.
Which, that doesn't happen in the novel at all, by the way. It is a one-sided massacre in the novel where the good guys do not die in any way, shape, or form.
That was a pretty heavy scene for me. That did get to me a little
it made me feel bad for the friend.
Not as much as what happens next, though.
Yeah.
Because Dan drives back alone. Well, starts driving back alone.
Yeah.
Only to find out... Wait, no, he does make it all the way back.
Yeah, he makes it all the way back. He doesn't know anything's wrong until he actually gets to Abra's house.
Right. So he gets to the house and finds out that
the father is killed. I think he was stabbed to death because I remember specifically him laying across the kitchen floor with a pool of blood. I think they show a knife
sticking out of him, too, I think.
I can't remember if there was a knife sticking out, but I specifically remember an image of him laying in his own pool of blood.
Yeah.
And Abra is gone. She has been kidnapped by
Crow
Daddy. Thank you.
Come to find out, the reason she couldn't get in touch with Dan and he couldn't get in touch with her to find out what was going on sooner.
Crow Daddy was drugging Abra.
Did they ever say what he was giving her?
In the novel, they go on this whole thing about the preparation of where to get the drugs and what the drugs are called and how to transport the drugs. Okay. I honestly cannot for the life of me remember what the drugs are called, but it's basically they're doping her up to sedate her entirely.
Yeah, sedate her and suppress her psychic powers.
Yeah, it suppresses her psychically and physically because she is gone.
Almost
she's
completely
gone.
Like she's unconscious for a good chunk of it, and then when she wakes up she can't move very well.
Yeah, like in the novel it's described as her
actually, isn't she in the trunk?
No, In the novel and in the movie, she's in the passenger seat, or
no, she's in the back seat.
Yeah, she's in the back seat in the movie. And in the novel, he actually takes the best friend's pickup truck.
Mm.
And she's in the cab with him of the pickup truck.
Okay.
During that whole route. Because in the novel, he doesn't kill the old man, but he threatens to kill the old man for a good while, because he actually has the old man and Abra. And he keeps the old man alive in order to keep Abra sedated not only with the drugs, but also keep her from doing anything past the drugs, because, you think you're gonna do anything? Well, guess what? This old man right here, he's even more drugged up than you are. And I'm not feeling any shine off him. So guess what? I can easily kill him right now. So his blood will be on your hands. Try something, kid.
Yeah.
And eventually in the novel, they actually just, drop him off somewhere. And he still is alive, from what I remember. Okay. But he's drugged up and all fucked up. And in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, Crow Daddy's got Abra. He's planning to take her back to...
all the way back to Rose.
But as the drugs start wearing off, Dan is able to get in touch with her. And
that's when we get the turning of the wheels situation.
And... that's where that comes in?
Yeah. It happens 2 or 3 times in the novel, and it happens during the times that people swap bodies, essentially.
Okay. So, she's starting to get a little bit of her power back. She doesn't have much at this point.
Yeah.
But Danny is able to project himself into her body.
Yeah. He switches them entirely. She's in his body, and he's in her body.
So, he has a nice little talk with Crow Daddy.
Mm-hmm.
Before pushing the truck off the road and sending him flying through the windshield.
Yeah, that happens in the novel too. It's kind of interesting because in the novel, his voice is actually projected into her body as well, not just his mind. So he has to speak in a certain way.
Right.
But Crow Daddy is very suspicious because he's like, hey, wait a minute, what's wrong with your voice?
Yeah. Well, in the movie, they just show Dan sitting in the back seat.
Yeah, because when Crow Daddy looks in the mirror, it's still Abra, but with our point of view, it's Dan.
Yeah, when you when you see the front shot, it's Dan sitting right there, but when he looks, it's
Yeah. Either way, in the movie, they're showing that he projected himself into Abra, but Crow Daddy doesn't hear the voice of Dan in the novel or in the movie, but in the novel,
because he just keeps calling him kid.
Yeah, because he doesn't get suspicious until Dan says, "Oh man, this feels like a hangover. I don't miss it." And Crow Daddy's like, "What?
I forgot about that.
Kid, what do you mean?" That was funny.
Yeah, and at that point in the movie, I think they're still showing Abra, right?
Yeah, they're still showing Abra, because one of the first things she says is, "Oh, this feels like a hangover. I don't miss it. I'll tell you what, I don't miss it."
And then they start showing Dan there.
Yeah, because she...
Or am I remembering that wrong? Do they just show Abra the whole time?
I'm pretty sure there was a scene or two where they actually show you that it is in fact Dan. No, but every time you get a shot of Crow Daddy,
I think I'm getting it confused, because I think when he first contacts her, they show him sitting in the car with her, talking to her.
Yeah, because
when he projects into her, when he projects into her, it's just her.
Yeah, and you actually see that in the trailer, her turning the car as Dan. But anyway, this is the scene where Crow Daddy dies.
Yeah, so Crow Daddy dies. Mm-hmm. It's down to just Rose the Hat.
Rose the Hat, Dan, and Abra.
We get our...
It completely diverges away from the book at this point, ladies and gentlemen. We get
our climax here.
Yeah. It's like the last whole third of the novel that is not in the book whatsoever. And you know what? I'm alright with it.
From what you've told me, it technically takes place in the same location, just
Completely different visuals, guys.
Because
the last third of this movie is 100% the decrepit version of the Overlook Hotel.
which is still a nice visual.
I still enjoyed it. I mean, mind you, I like a bit of nostalgia here and there.
Now, I remember you saying in the book it's the burned down remains of the Overlook.
No, it's actually the Overlook was burned down and they completely got rid of everything.
Okay.
That was once the Overlook Hotel. And they built up the True Knot built up their home base.
This is where they set up their home
camping ground. Yeah, okay. It's literally a camping ground.
So, yeah. So, I guess in the book, Dan just tracks Rose down to that location then, right?
Yeah, Dan and Abra go to that location. And in the novel, they make it to where Abra is coming herself. Because she projects her voice to Rose and tells her, "Watch it, bitch. I'm coming for you. You don't have to come hunt for me. You messed up one too many times. I'm coming after you now."
That's hilarious.
And Rose is like, "Okay, bitch, come on." They were both just catty with each other in that little bit there.
In the movie, however, this is where I started to fall off, because we just get a huge dump of fan service.
Yeah. I mean, I liked it, but I also hated it at the same time.
It was a serviceable ending. I mean, that's basically how I sum up this whole movie, is serviceable.
Yeah. At the end of that movie, during the last third, Dan and Abra go to the old Overlook Hotel, which is shown as just a decrepit building.
Yeah,
it's not burnt down in any way, shape, or form, but it has been done.
It was completely abandoned and left
boarded
to rot
up
after the events of The Shining.
Right. Basically, they're kind of implicating that it just got completely shut down again after Jack tried to kill Wendy and Danny. And Dan walks through the entire hotel, turning it on.
Yeah.
Not physically, but with his shine.
Yeah.
He brings back the old power of the Overlook
As
Hotel.
he's walking through, you're seeing lights coming on, color coming back to the place. Mm-hmm. It is a really nice visual. I liked it. I want to stress that, but it just lends itself to a lot of what I can only call fan service.
Yeah.
That got a little annoying.
I'm not gonna lie, yes, it was annoying. It went a little too long.
But there is one really good scene.
Which one?
When he goes into the gold ballroom.
Really? You think that one was the better scene of all those little scenes?
Yeah.
I thought the maze scene with them trying to trap Rose was the best scene. But I get...
Okay, yeah, that...
You were just happy to see Dan confronting his father, right?
Yeah, because Dan walks into the
surreal,
gold ballroom, sits down at the same bar that Jack sat at.
Pretty much in the very same seat, too, I think.
Yeah, and he meets Lloyd, the bartender, who very much looks and sounds like old Jack.
Yep. Yeah, because the specter of Jack basically acts like he's not actually Jack.
Yeah.
But Dan is like no, you were my father.
He continues to call himself Lloyd, but it's obviously supposed to be Jack, and Dan talks to him in that way.
I read it as it was supposed to actually be Jack, but he had been so ingrained into the hotel at that point, like how in the novel, he lost his mind entirely.
It's very much the same as what happened to Delbert Grady.
Yeah. They became literally part of the hotel.
They lost
all of their
now.
humanity.
Like,
right.
Because in The Shining, when Jack talks to Grady about what he did, he's like, no, I'm not the caretaker. You are. You were always the caretaker.
The caretaker, yep.
So is that little bit like, so yeah, he's basically part of the hotel now. He's Lloyd, but he's still Jack, and he still wants to tell the kid to take his medicine.
Can I just say I'm a little happy that they brought in the pup take your medicine bit, because that was not part of The Shining whatsoever.
That was left out of Kubrick's
but that
film.
was in the novel. That was 100% in the novel.
Because that was kind of his catchphrase in the novel, wasn't it?
Yeah.
You gotta take your medicine.
Come here, pup, and take your medicine. Yeah.
So...
Yeah, because he like, in the novel, when he became that possessed creature that he ended up being, he called Danny Pup, because his father used to call him Pup when he would beat him. So it's just that whole vicious cycle going on of alcoholism and abuse. And that's what really narrows down with this entire series. And I think that might be why Stephen King made this novel. He wanted to finally break the cycle.
Okay, I can see that.
Because you never get it from the movie The Shining, but in the novel, if anyone's read the novel, they know that it is a vicious cycle. Daniel Torrance's grandfather was an alcoholic and an abusive man. He would beat his children. He beat his wife to death in front of his children.
And Jack was starting to go down that same road.
Right. Actually, I'm not... No, he never beat his wife to death, but he beat her with his cane to the point where she had to go to the hospital a couple of times in front of the children. Yeah.
And then, of course, Jack was starting to go down that same road where he got drunk and broke Danny's arm.
Yeah. And he would get drunk all the time, over and over and over, even after breaking Danny's arm and promising his wife that he would do better. And, I mean, heck, he even beat one of his students when he was completely sober in the novel.
Yeah.
But anyway, I'm sorry, guys. I went on to another tangent.
So, yeah, you do have this really nice scene in the Gold Ballroom with Danny talking to his father.
He's basically confronting him and looking at him and saying, you did all these things. You missed Mom's death. You missed me growing up.
Yeah.
You lost everything because of this hotel, essentially.
Yeah.
And it was all the while, kind of a powerful scene to me.
All the while, Jack/Lloyd is
denying everything.
Denying everything and trying to get Danny to take a drink.
Basically acting like he doesn't know who Danny is and he doesn't know who Wendy is. All he wants is for the pup to take his medicine.
Yep.
And doesn't Dan either throw down the glass or about to act like he's taking a sip and then put it down? I can't remember if he actually throws down the glass or if he just simply puts it down.
I don't remember if he sets it down or throws it down, but yeah, he does pick it up.
Either way, he absolutely
he does pick it up like he's contemplating
it.
On taking a drink, but then just rejects it all out and walks back out of the ballroom.
Yeah. Lloyd/Jack gets pissed at that.
Yeah. And then we finally have the confrontation with Rose.
Yeah, Rose finally makes it up the mountain. Down. Yeah. Yeah, she finally makes it up the mountain, and she gets led to the hedge maze. To the mental hedge maze.
Yeah.
Because she thinks she's about to trap Abra, when Abra is just an image projected by Danny at that point.
Yeah.
To trap Rose the Hat into one of his special boxes.
Yeah, she basically just walks right into Danny's mind.
Yeah, and unfortunately, at the very last second, she realizes what's going on.
Yeah.
And gets herself away from the trap.
Yeah, because, you got this image of Abra running around attacking Rose.
In the middle of the hedge maze.
In the middle of the hedge maze.
Yeah, because didn't she have her own version of Rose's knife
I think so.
in that scene,
Yeah.
and she was running back and
Running
forth,
back, cutting her up.
cutting her legs.
Yep.
Yeah, specifically, she was cutting Rose's legs.
Yeah.
To immobilize her. And then at the last second, Rose realizes...
Finally, I think she finally gets a hold of her and then realizes...
You're not the real Abra.
Yeah.
You're just a projection.
This isn't your mind.
Right.
I think is what she says.
Yeah, that's right, because at first it makes it look like she is in the mind of Abra, but in all actuality, it's Dan projecting his mind as Abra's at that point, so that he personally could track and trap Rose.
Then you get this nice shot of Dan standing at the top of the staircase with that axe.
Oh, yeah.
And this is where the fan servicey bits really start to come in. Because...
They have their whole fight.
They have their little confrontation. They kind of recreate that staircase scene with only it's Rose stalking Danny.
Yeah, it's reversed.
And Danny just lets out all of the spirits of the hotel.
Yeah. After Rose basically beats him down.
Oh, yeah.
Because she actually one-ups him in the movie.
Right. In their physical confrontation, she gets the best of him, and she's about to kill him.
Yeah. When he finally lets out the ghosts, and they all trap over her.
Yeah.
And start... Basically, it looks like they're ripping her apart, it seems.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, because that doesn't happen in the novel at all.
So now all of the spirits are loose, and
they're going after Danny now.
Yeah, now they're going after Danny, and unfortunately, Abra runs in to try to
save Danny,
pull him
essentially.
Out. And Danny says, "No, you've got to get out of here. I need to stay."
Yeah,
because...
but that's after he gets possessed by the spirits of the hotel.
Right. I forgot about that.
Yeah, because she comes up to try to help him when he's being covered by the spirits.
Yeah,
at that point, they are possessing him.
Because they corner him in 237.
Yeah.
No.
He corners Abra in 237.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Yeah, because he's still in the middle of the stairs.
Right.
Basically, okay, remember in the scene of The Shining...
Yeah, it's coming back to me now.
Where Jack Torrance falls and he ends at the middle part of the stairway?
Yeah.
That's basically where Dan gets caught with the spirits. After they rip apart Rose, they catch him and possess him at that point. And when Abra comes up, he is possessed, even though he's trying to fight it, and he chases after her with the axe.
Yeah.
And she ends up in the room of 237.
Right. That's where he starts to get back a little bit of control, enough to tell her that she needs to get the fuck out of there.
Basically, they 100%... Well, not 100%, but they basically recreate the ending of the novel The Shining, where Jack Torrance corners Danny in a hallway instead of 237, and
one of the first
battles the possession.
Because one of the first things that Danny did when he came into the hotel was to go down to the boiler room.
And you don't know what he does down there.
No,
at first.
I thought they showed him cranking up the boiler, like, to maximum.
Oh, shit. I can't remember. I thought that they only showed him going down to the boiler room and then cut off right before they show him doing anything. I could easily be wrong. You're probably right. Yeah, either way, you find out that he goes down to the boiler room.
Or maybe that's a flashback as...
I thought it was a flashback.
Either way, you find out that... Danny has cranked up the boiler to maximum.
Somehow that thing is still kicking. After being turned off for years.
It's getting ready to blow. Much like how it did in the novel of The Shining.
Which makes no sense, because that thing has only been on at maximum for like maybe an hour.
Yeah, a couple hours.
But whatever.
Hours maybe.
But either way, you get this great scene down in the boiler room after he holds back the possession just long enough to get Abra out of that hotel.
Yeah.
And he actually goes back down into the boiler room to have the scene where he is laying on the floor of the boiler room, still fighting the possession. And then the boiler room just
the boiler,
exploding in flame.
The boiler bursts and flames just spread throughout the whole hotel. Mm-hmm. And you get that nice shot of the whole thing burning down.
Yeah. Yeah, before it all bursts into flames, you get that... I don't know, I feel like there was just a sweet moment with Dan.
Yeah.
Down in the basement. I can't remember if it was a sweet moment with his mom or if he just had a moment of clarification that this is what he needed to do. I can't remember if his mom was part of that or not. I feel like she was part of that.
I don't remember.
Because in the novel and in the movie, she's dead. She died of lung cancer.
Right.
Before he is a 20-year-old or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't remember exactly how that bit plays out, but...
I can't remember if his mom was there in that particular scene or not. I may have to rewatch it, but...
Either way, the hotel burns down.
Dan is dead.
Abra's left by herself out in the snow to try to call her mom.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, that's going to be a story to explain.
She doesn't have a cell phone, remember? Because in the movie, she throws away the cell phone. For some stupid reason.
Right. Like,
she tells Dan.
She calls her mom on the road to the hotel and then throws it out the window.
Which is absolutely stupid because now she's alone. But either way,
I have no idea how Abra gets home then.
Yeah, because it kind of cuts off. The scene cuts off with her watching the hotel burn down. Right. And I think you see a shot of police cars coming up with their lights on.
Maybe?
I'm pretty sure that happened in the movie.
Okay.
But
yeah, well, if that's the case, then that explains how she got out of there.
It cuts off, and then you get an epilogue of her in her room at her old house. Her father is dead. Her and her mom are trying to deal with the events of what happened. I think her mom is mostly still in the dark of what all exactly happened.
Right.
And then she has a talk with Dan in her bedroom because he is now just a ghost.
Yeah. And then...
I like
doesn't it close out with one of the spirits knocking at her door and then...
Yes, the old woman comes back.
Right.
Yeah, because all of the spirits were taken out of the boxes.
Oh yeah. No, she goes into her bathroom and that's where she sees the old woman.
Yeah. And she just kind of smiles and closes the door and locks up. And that's the end of the movie. Because she's basically going to do what Dan did.
Yeah, lock them all up as they come for her.
Lock them all up as they come for her. Because I believe during their little heart-to-heart in the bedroom, Dan even says... They're probably going to come after you now. They're loose again because I'm no longer there to trap them.
Right.
You're going to have to trap them now yourself.
Right.
You'll do it better because you're stronger. You can do it.
So now should we get into the other connection in the book?
That doesn't come up in the movie at all, by the way, guys.
Which I'm happy for, honestly.
Yeah. There was not enough time for them to explain everything. But basically, what happens in the novel, Dan is literally Uncle Dan to Abra. You come to find out that Dan's father, Jack Torrance, while he was a professor at the university, well before he got fired from the university, he had an affair with a student. With one of his students, he had an affair. And that was Abra's grandmother. Yes, yeah. Abra's grandmother had the affair with Jack Torrance. To where now their child that Jack didn't know was a thing.
Right.
By the way. I mean, he definitely... had relations with the girl, but he didn't realize that she was pregnant.
Right.
Because either he got fired before she could come to him and tell him about it, or she just never went to him about it.
Right.
I can't remember. Either way, she goes back to Momo when she finds out she's pregnant and doesn't tell anyone who the father is. She eventually tells Momo, you know, the great-grandmother.
Right.
Who the father is, but... she she does it in an offhand way of like either she wrote it in a diary entry or she throws hints to Momo of who it was. She never explicitly says who it is what I'm trying to go with, is what I'm trying to get at. But nobody knew who Abra's grandfather was. So basically, her mom is the half-sister of Dan Torrance.
Mm-hmm.
And when Abra originally said, oh, I'll just call you Uncle Dan, because technically, scientifically speaking, we're all related, which she is right. We're all essentially got some relation. But when she called him Uncle Dan, they, in the novel, explain it as she subconsciously knew their connection. Yeah, they actually explain it as when she originally called him Uncle Dan, she had an inkling or a feeling that that was actually legit. And okay, so how they find out in the novel that they are related is because the whole entire subplot of Momo is actually a major side character in the novel. Okay. And it kind of makes me sad because I actually really liked this woman. Aww. She is a strong, firm, stubborn bitch of a woman. And I don't mean bitch in a bad way, but she is just, she's solid. She's there. She's very much a woman that you don't fuck with, but in a very realistic manner. Like, there are little things here and there throughout the novel where Momo and the father of Abra, David, I believe his name was, don't really like each other, but because they're connected so deeply because of the mother, they handle each other. Okay. They have their little spats here and there, but there is familial relation between them, and they deal with each other. Okay. She's that kind of woman where not everyone loves her, but you gotta respect her. Okay. There's a certain air about her where she is a respectable woman. Yeah. She's actually a famous poet and a very articulate, literate woman in the novel. Okay. But her whole thing was she got older and older, and during the events of most of this novel, she is dying of cancer. She actually is connected to Dan because she is eventually taken to his hospice without him realizing it. Oh, okay. So when he tracks... Right, I do remember you talking about that. Yeah, he tracks her down and finds out that she's in his hospice. She is just brought to his hospice because Momo originally lived close to the mountains in a different state. Okay. But because her closest family relation was Abra and her mom, they moved her from her old home to this hospice in Dan's town because Dan's town is so close to Abra's town. So, Momo was moved to the hospice to be closer to the family during her dying days. And at one point in time in the novel, before the confrontation with Rose, Dan goes to Momo and performs his Dr. Sleep routine. He sits at her bedside and he talks with her, and he doesn't help her pass over. He actually does what the True Knot do. It sucks in her steam, her essence, her cancer. He takes everything because of her dying breath. He soaks in her dying breath and he gets her cancer. Oh. He did a True Knot thing, which is very interesting, because that is how in the novel they defeat the True Knot for good. Because when Rose sucks in some of his essence, she sucks in some of Momo, and therefore her cancer. Gotcha. Because in the novel, there are still people alive. Some of the True Knot are actually just scattered to the four winds. Right. And
you mentioned before a bunch of them just left the camp.
They're non-characters at that point. They never come up again. And then there are Snakebite Andy had a girlfriend / wife during the years of being with the True Knot, and she's mentally handicapped.
Oh, okay.
But she's hiding in a shed by Rose's command to be the ambush.
Okay.
And there's a scattering of other True Knot characters that I can't remember the names of, and a lot of them were also nameless, I believe.
Okay.
That were just side characters. They were mentioned here and there in sprinklings to give the True Knot a little bit of background. They're there in the lodge, in the kitchen lodge. I can't remember exactly how, but they also get killed off. I think it's because Dan lets them have a bit of his essence, therefore Momo's essence, and her cancer.
Okay.
And because she was literally at her dying breath of cancer, and that cancer is consuming him in the novel. Like, during the entire time that he is traveling to these places, he feels the cancer.
Okay.
It's affecting him in many ways. He loses his appetite. So it's getting harder for him to sleep.
It's basically already in an advanced stage.
Right.
Of him.
Right. It's killing him, literally.
Okay.
In the novel. To the point where it's almost like he can't stand by the end of the confrontation because of just the cancer itself. Okay. Not because of the confrontation. But he lets a lot of them soak up his steam, and they all start dying off because of the advanced stages of cancer.
Gotcha.
And in the novel, there is this slope with a giant deck on the slope of the mountain. Basically, from what I remember, it is essentially where the front doors of the Overlook Hotel were. Okay. Is where this new deck is. It's overlooking the beautiful landscape of the mountains. And this is where you get the final confrontation of Snakebite Andy's ex-wife, lover, what have you. Because Snakebite Andy is dead at this point. Right, her past lover. And Rose and Abra and Dan. Basically what happens is, at that point, when they go up onto the slope, Dan unleashes the spirits. Okay. And Snakebite Andy's lover actually gets killed off on the sidelines in the shack itself by Horace. Yeah. Yeah, okay. His spirit somehow kills her in the shed. When she was supposed to be the ambush to come out with a knife and strike down Dan at Rose's word. That doesn't happen, obviously.
Right.
Rose doesn't know that her ambush is dead. Because during that time, she was already feeling the death of all of her other people. Because they actually feel each other's deaths. Okay. So she's freaking out. She's mourning the loss of her people and also battling against Abra and Dan and frustrated. So she completely misses over the fact that her ambush is dead at this point because of the spirit. So when she tries to get the ambush to happen, it doesn't occur. So in the novel, Dan and Abra psychically push Rose over the edge. Mm-hmm.
Nice.
And they have this, in my opinion, it's kind of a dumb little scene because I'm such a fan of how they changed things up in the Stanley Kubrick film about Jack.
Okay.
In the novel, they get this cutesy little scene of after Rosa is dead and disintegrated, Dan looks up After slowly walking down the slope, he looks up at the deck again because he feels a presence. Guess whose presence it is? Dear old Daddy. And Dad is smiling at him in a proud manner. Yep! It was... I laughed a little at that scene.
That just reminds me of the end of King's Shining miniseries.
Oh, yeah, the graduation scene.
Good job,
blew me a
Doc.
kiss. That was dumb, in my opinion.
Nice going, Doc, or whatever he says.
Yeah, either way, there was this cutesy little moment.
Okay, so we're going on an hour and 45 minutes here. Do we want to wrap this up?
Yeah, I mean, we basically did the whole synopsis of not only the movie, but also the novel. We kind of gave a little bit of
major differences throughout.
Yeah, the major and minor differences.
So, final thoughts.
Personally, I hated the novel, even though I read it twice. I hated the novel. I hated it the first time I read it, and I hated it the second time I read it. The movie is absolutely flawed, but I actually enjoyed it 10 times more than the novel. I would personally want to watch this movie 3 more times before I ever pick up that novel 1 more time.
Okay.
Mind you, I agree with you. The last third of the movie is kitschy and it's nothing but fan service. But it changed enough to where, in my opinion, it felt more deserving than the novel.
Okay. Now, again, I haven't read the novel, so I can't say anything about that. I will say that the movie is unnecessary.
Mm-hmm. Along with the novel.
But, as I've said several times, it's serviceable.
Right.
There's nothing really bad about it. The acting is decent. The
acting is really good, in my opinion.
I love Ewan McGregor.
Ewan McGregor is great.
Actually, a pretty nice fit for Dan Torrance.
Yeah. I'm not gonna lie. He looks a lot like how I kind of pictured Dan Torrance in the novel when I first read it 7 years ago. The girl who played Abra, I loved. She was a good actress, in my opinion.
I wish I could remember her name. She did really well.
I'm bad at names.
But, again, it just feels unnecessary as a follow-up to The Shining, even as a follow-up to Kubrick's The Shining.
Right.
It just doesn't hit those same notes that Kubrick hits.
They tried, guys. They certainly tried.
Once again, the ending, nothing but fan service. I will say, a lot of those fan service moments are pretty good taken on their own.
Right.
But they just pile up throughout that ending scene. Oh,
yes, they do.
To where you're just rolling your eyes, rubbing your temples, and just get it over with.
I'm not gonna lie, I am completely different in my opinion on that, but that is only because I read the novel.
Right.
And as I said, everything was too squeaky clean in the novel. And in my opinion, even though I agree with you that the sequel of the sequel movie was unnecessary, the novel is even more so, in my opinion. Just my opinion.
Honestly, the biggest flaw in this story is the stakes just aren't high enough. Even in the film, where you get the father and the best friend dying, the stakes just don't feel high enough for this kind of confrontation.
I will say that watching the movie versus the novel, I did have a little more fear for the True Knot in the movie over the novel. They did do that right.
Okay.
There was a little more fear and a little more stakes. Not enough to actually call this a horror film. In my opinion, this is not a horror film, and this is not a horror novel.
Not by any means.
And I'm pretty sure King didn't mean for it to be a horror. In all actuality, I'm sure he didn't mean for this to be an actual horror. But King doesn't always do strict horror.
No.
He does a lot of sci-fi fantasy when you really look into it. He just is very good with horror elements in a lot of his stories. This novel, this adaptation was not horror, though.
Yeah. Bottom line, it is a good movie. especially if you're a fan of Stephen King in general.
Yeah.
It does hit a lot of his usual little tropes.
AA.
But for the most part, it's done pretty well.
Yeah.
It's just, again, unnecessary.
Yeah.
And I don't know, if you like the book of Dr. Sleep, you'll probably enjoy the movie if you haven't already seen it.
Yeah.
If you're like
a fan
Rain
of...
and you didn't like the book, it might be a toss-up, honestly.
Yeah, honestly, it might be a toss-up. Then again, people who didn't like the novel might not even look into this film at all.
Yeah.
I only looked into this film because of the differences that were shown.
Yeah.
It was only just interesting enough.
As a follow-up to The Shining, it does its job well enough.
It's just completely unnecessary.
But, yeah, I can take it or leave it.
Yeah.
That's pretty much all I've got for it.
Yeah. I just wanted to eventually talk about it because it's been on my mind so much after we watched the film.
It's acted well, it's presented well. There are some really gorgeous shots.
Mm-hmm, yeah. They did do well at replicating Kubrick's vision. But that's the key word here. Replicating. Yeah. You will never get on point with how Kubrick could do things.
I mean...
The man was crazy, but...
Stanley Kubrick was meticulous. Mm-hmm. Notoriously so.
Mm-hmm. He's famous for how meticulous he is.
I can't remember the woman's name.
Shelley Duvall?
Shelley Duvall. Who
played Wendy in the original movie.
She was almost harassed by Kubrick.
Almost? She was absolutely being harassed. She was stressed out to the point of illness throughout a lot of the filming. But even she said... Yeah. The ends justified the means.
Yeah, that's just the kind of dedication that Kubrick put into his work, where he doesn't really... it's almost obsessive, honestly, where he doesn't really care about the actor's well-being. But that's...
They cared about Danny's well-being.
Well, because he's a kid.
Yeah.
But
they could do whatever with the adults, but there were and are laws against mistreatment of children on set when there aren't so many strict laws with adults. So he was actually amazing with the kid. He was very good with the kid, but oh man, when it came to Shelley Duvall specifically, was he a tyrant?
He was a dick. I'll put it bluntly. From everything I've heard, he was a dick.
Yeah, it really colored my opinion of him when I heard more about it. But
it is that obsessive nature and that meticulous control that produces these gorgeous movies that Stanley Kubrick was known for.
As Shelley herself said, the ends did eventually justify the means.
And
even she didn't hate the man.
And most filmmakers nowadays are not going to be able to truly replicate the kind of style that he mastered through his obsessive, meticulous nature. So,
everything had to be perfect and right by his vision.
So,
come on.
By modern movie standards, it is a fair follow-up. But it pales in comparison to what Stanley Kubrick did.
Excuse me.
Hey, honey. Any other final thoughts?
No, not really, other than I hated the film. I was alright with the movie. Honestly.
You hated the book?
Did I say I hated the film?
Yes, you
I
did.
hated the novel. I was alright with the film. I don't see myself buying the film, but I do not regret watching it in theaters.
Yeah.
That's
so there you go.
I
mean, again, if you like Stephen King or if you liked Dr. Sleep specifically, go ahead and check the movie out if you haven't already. Mm-hmm. It is good enough.
Yeah.
Not what I would call great, but it is good enough. It is entertaining.
It's better than Pet Sematary.
It's... I don't know. I still thought Pet Sematary was entertaining throughout, but...
You haven't read the novel.
Okay. But, yeah, I think that's it for our thoughts on Dr. Sleep.
Yeah, that's it, really. Well,
right.
Thank you for sitting and talking with me for almost 2 hours about a novel that you've never read and a film that you've only read once. It was fun, though.
Yeah, this was fun. We should do it again sometime. But with that said, we'll see you guys later.
Bye.